Hello and welcome to part 2 of my team building guide. This is the actual team build itself now. So we'll be building the team based off of the information that we covered in part 1 of my own personal building style. So let's start by having a look at what's popular in the meta recently. So in my playing online on the console, I did see a huge trend in Zacian teams recently. I mean, of course, they've always been around, but it seems like the Zacian team has been pretty much optimized at this point. This happens with this kind of format. This always happens, where you'll have a few dominant strategies, and then if a strong good stuff team is found, it gets played and played and played, and then eventually it gets optimized to the point where it becomes the best team. And I think that's the point we're reaching now with this particular meta game. Now, the good news is, usually when this happens, a counter team does pop up. The good stuff team becomes so dominant that players start to adapt around it, and while it's very difficult to actually counter, usually a counter team does end up coming along. So if we have a look at the usage stats, you can see here on the left, these are for Pokemon Showdown. Yeah, Zacian is the most used restricted Pokemon. Xerneas is actually second on Showdown, Kyogre third, Calyrex fourth. And if we go to console usage, we will see that, once again, Zacian is the 6th most used Pokemon. Number 1 again in terms of restricted slot. Calyrex Shadow just behind it, and you've got Kyogre in 3rd. And then Xerneas is down there at number 17. So yeah, very much in the Zacian meta. And on both of those lists, if we look here, the top 6 Pokemon, not including Zacian, are Pokemon that you quite commonly find on these Zacian teams. So we are going to try to build a team to beat Zacian teams, because if we can beat Zacian teams effectively and do it with a team that is good all around, a good counter team, then we should be able to beat the other teams as well that Zacian teams are already beating. So let's talk about these typical Zacian teams that you see running around now. A lot of them have the Firewalk Grass Core, as I mentioned in the video. So when we're looking at that, what beats Firewalk Grass Core? Typically a Dragon type does. Elements of the Fantasy Core can do so. Of course, not quite so easy, considering Zacian is a Fairy type itself, and they're running Play Rough nowadays. You've also got the Incineroar and the Rillaboom on these teams. Don't carry Protect. Of course, they don't carry Protect across the meta anyway, but they're mainstays on this kind of team. Rillaboom occasionally has Protect, but rarely. So again, those are slots that you can target into if given the opportunity, and you're going to get damage off. So these are things that we're looking to capitalize upon. Zacian is so strong because of its typing, because of its ability, and because of its speed. Well, not just its speed, it's stat distribution in general. Of course, speed is very important, but stat distribution in general, it's got really, really nice stats across the board. So, how can we beat Zacian? What beats Zacian? Calyrex does. Calyrex Shadow Rider. It outspeeds Zacian naturally and hits it for neutral damage with Astral Barrage. I don't want to make a Calyrex Shadow Rider team right now, because I don't feel like it's particularly consistent in the format at the moment. I think a lot of teams have answers to Calyrex Shadow Rider, so I don't want to go down that route. What else beats Zacian? Trick Room teams do. The problem with Trick Room teams is you've only got a certain amount of turns to work with, and these Zacian teams, because they have Incineroar and Rillaboom, and sometimes other methods as well to slow down the opposition, they can generally stall out the Trick Room, and so it's not a one and done deal against Zacian teams if you're going to use Trick Room. So with that said, we're going to disappoint quite a few people here, because we're actually going to run a Zacian team. After all that, we're going to run our own Zacian team. It's going to be a little bit different. It is a little bit different, because of course I'm not just going to remake your typical Zacian team, right? We want to beat Zacian teams, and the idea is, if we can beat opposing Zacian teams with anti-meta picks that do well against them, then hopefully that same team will function similar to a standard Zacian team in that it has options against the other archetypes you'd come across as well. So let's have a look at what I came up with. So I've actually already done the team building, and yeah, we're just going to quickly go through everything. So first of all, let me change this. I ran Jolly Zacian, and it had Imprison. I saw Imprison in its move set and I thought, oh, that's actually quite interesting. That sounds like it could be fun, that could work. It was okay. It was okay. Swords Dance or Sub are better. Simple as that. It was fun to try. It's worth trying. Like I said in the first video, don't be afraid to experiment. Try things out. I tried Imprison. Swords Dance is definitely a better option. Substitute as well. I prefer Swords Dance. Then we've got Close Combat and Iron Head, which of course becomes Behemoth Blade. So yeah, there we go. We're at Zacian. Then if we jump over, actually the next Pokemon I put on the team was, it was a Salamence. And the reason I put Salamence on this team is because if we look at the type synergy here, I remembered this from 2015 and 16 seasons where some people were running dual Mega on their team, Mega Salamence and Mega Mawile. These typings cover each other flawlessly. So we've got the fantasy core going on here. Fairy, Steel, and a Dragon typing. And yeah, if you have a look, they cover each other absolutely flawlessly. For each weakness that we have, we've got resistances and then more resistances on top of that. And we've got crucial immunities as well. It's not super important. It's not, well, I mean, it's important. It's not as important as it was back in those previous formats, because now you've got to deal with things like Calyrex, which have an attacking type, which can be quite difficult to have multiple answers to in this format, in ghost typing. But I wanted to run this because for that reason, but also Salamence being a dragon type pairs really well into opposing Firewall or Grass cores, unless the grass type has Ice Beam, of course. But against Rillaboom, it does a great job, and to Incineroar to some degree as well. If they don't have a dark move, they can't really do much in return, and you get your Intimidate off. And it doesn't matter if we get intimidated, since we're not running. Well, let's have a look at what we're running. We're actually running Choice Scarf, which I used on my Solgaleo team on the Crack the Meta series. This team was kind of born from that team. That team was not too bad, but didn't function exactly how I wanted it to. Let's have a quick look at the set we've got here. So Hurricane, Draco Meteor, Hydro Pump, and Crunch. So Crunch knocks out Calyrex. If you notice the spread here as well, you have to go with, you can't go minus attacks, otherwise Crunch is not guaranteed to knock out Calyrex. So we've gone minus defense because, well, we've got Intimidate. It just makes sense. Hydro Pump, we're running Choice Scarf, so this was the important thing. Hydro Pump will knock out Choice Scarf Entei, which is a big problem for Zacian. It will allow our Salamence to knock out Landorus as well. Bit riskier on Landorus, because if you miss, then you're gonna have a tough time with it, because you're gonna take damage into the other slot. Of course, what I mean by this is in rain we knock out both those Pokemon handily. Against Landorus you don't need to do it. You can, I don't know what the calc is on Crunch plus Behemoth Blade, but I feel like that would knock it out. Not that I'd want to go for that, but again, if you don't have to Hydro Pump, then don't Hydro Pump, because you're going to miss sometimes. Next up was Politoed. So I wanted to run Perish Song. I wanted a Perish option on this team to. We've got power from Zacian. We've got decent power from Salamence as well. If we can knock out two Pokemon, we can win with Perish Song. That was my thinking here. And I was looking at Pokemon that are either Fire, Water, or Grass type that get Perish Song. A lot of Water types get it. You've got Lapras gets it, Primarina gets it, Azumarill as well, which is a fun one because you can run Sapsipra, Azumarill, and be immune to Grass types. But we've gone with Politoed because Politoed, it supports Zacian and enables Salamence, because you notice I said Hurricane as well, and I said I don't like inaccurate moves. Well, we've got the Rain to make sure we hit our Hurricanes, and it also makes sure that our Hydro Pumps are knocking out Entei, knocking out Landorus as well. Helping Hand. Politoed gets a lot of supportive options, some really nice moves. It gets Encore, it gets Icy Wind as well for speed control. I like Helping Hand. And of course we've got Scald as well. I actually ran eject pack because I was thinking, oh, how cool would it be? You can like lead Salamence and Politoed. If they lead their Intimidate, for example, Incineroar, then Politoed switches out immediately. In comes Zacian, and then you've got Salamence in rain, ready to start hitting things with 100% accurate Hurricane. And you've got Zacian, which hasn't been intimidated. Unfortunately, in practice, didn't quite work out because worked really well in that scenario against Incineroar. But what I didn't realise was if they have a Pokemon like Landorus, which is faster than Politoed, they get the Intimidate off before Drizzle activates, and it switches the Pokemon out immediately. So a lot of the time we were basically running no item on Politoed, because if they didn't have Intimidate, then the item wasn't being used. And if they had Landorus and they led Landorus and we led Politoed into it, then we would just switch out anyway. I mean, we'd get in Zacian without being intimidated, which, you know, is something to be said about that. But yeah, it didn't really work out. We've gone for this spread as well because of Regieleki mainly, for longevity as well. As you can see from the rest of the team, we have double Intimidate, so we don't really need much defense investment. And Politoed's not knocking things out anyway in one shot, so it's doing decent damage with Scald when it needs to. Got that burn chance as well. Next, so yeah, here's where it gets disappointing. I said we wouldn't just make the same old Zacian team, but we've got Rillaboom, and we have Incineroar as well. They're just too good. They are just too good. So on this team, Rillaboom is again covered from its fire weakness by Politoed. It sets up grassy terrain for longevity for all of the other team members apart from Salamence. So we're getting passive healing from that. Yeah, I've gone for max special defense, as especially bulky as you can get. I've gone for, because its attack stat is already high enough that it's still doing really, really good damage with all of its moves, especially Grassy Glide. And that's what I want it to do. I'm not, again, we're not looking to knock things out in one hit with all of our Pokemon. That's just not going to happen. So I'm happy dealing good damage with this spread and living long enough as well to get in and out, be able to maneuver. Very important on, as I mentioned in the first video, very important on these kinds of teams. Then we have Incineroar. Again, it's just so good that it's on this team as well. The spread's a bit wonky at the moment. It's not actually wonky, it's actually fine, but it's not the spread that I run. That's the spread I run. So if we quickly talk about this spread on the Incineroar, this is the one that survives Boosted Xerneas Moonblast after a Geomancy. So yeah, it was 4 and 12 as you saw. No, it should be 4, it shouldn't be 4 and 12. It should have been 4 and 4 and 28, which I think some people run, which I think is the more standard form of the more standard version of this particular spread. I go the full 36. Because then you find yourself outspeeding most Incineroar and able to fake them out before they can fake you out. And I think that one extra speed is worth the 2 points that it's going to cost, the one from each stat that you get otherwise. Yeah, Incineroar is just so good. The thing is, we've got Drizzle. For all intents and purposes, this is very much a rain team. Not many fire types can function well on a rain team. Incineroar has just such good utility that Incineroar does function on the rain team. It can switch out, of course it has fake out, it can switch out with parting shot or U-turn if I wanted to run the assault vest, which I don't particularly like, but it's possible. I like to run taunt on my Incineroar. I like to run a variety of moves on my Incineroar. Snarl is obviously very, very good. I like taunt to stop things like Indeedee going for follow me all the time, to shut down Amoonguss as well, and to stop Trick Rims that are not Mental Herb Mimikyu. It's just so good. Even with Flare Blitz, even though we're running rain, it is just so good. The rain doesn't last forever. We can still Flare Blitz things. And then in the last slot, I was worried about Regieleki, so we put Raichu on the team. Also had Nuzzle, so we had some form of speed control because we have none. And this was the first draft of the team, and it was decent. I played it on Showdown, and it was really good, especially Salamence. What I brought to every single game were the first three: Zacian, Salamence, and Politoed. The three of those are just a really great trio. They work really well together. You got the prayer song option from Politoed. He's also enabling Salamence, getting rid of Zacian's fire weakness. Salamence has the Intimidate as well. And then I was usually, I think, bringing in Incineroar, but I was also bringing Rillaboom fairly often. And Raichu rarely, but sometimes when they have Regieleki. Now, Raichu's a bit of a mistake on this team. I was looking for a Lightning Rod Pokemon, and it was a bad idea, because if you want to beat a Pokemon, then you should beat the Pokemon by choosing something that beats it. As stupid as that might sound, Raichu doesn't beat Regieleki. It stops it using single target electric moves. The problem is it can still Electro Web, and that lowering of the speed is a big problem. It's a big problem for this team. So Raichu, unfortunately, is not in this team anymore. So let's look at the updated version of the team. What I ended up changing it to. So it's down here. So Zacian, exactly the same. Politoed, we've gone for the Aguave Berry to give it a bit more longevity as well. It survives, with this spread, I didn't mention it before, with this spread, it survives Regieleki, Thunderbolt, if they're holding Magnet from Timid Regieleki. It has a 6.3% chance of being knocked out in one hit, which I'm more than happy to go with that spread for that reason. Then you have, okay, so Salamence is now holding a Focus Sash. There's a good reason for this. It's because we changed the Raichu to something else. So we dropped Hydro Pump because Salamence was great at knocking out Entei and Landorus. You know, you'd lead it, and then you'd switch in Politoed in the partner slot, and then you would knock those Pokemon out in one hit. Problem was, when it missed, it was a big problem. It was a big problem. As expected, it was not good. I hated it every time that I clicked Hydro Pump, even though we hit them more often than we missed. I did not enjoy it. So we put Focus Sash on there, Hurricane, Draco Meteor, and still we're going for Crunch as well. We've had to change the spread to Hasty. So we're now max speed. The reason that we've done that is because on this version of the team, I don't want Water Urshifu getting out of hand, especially since we're setting up rain for it more often than not. So this makes sure that as long as it's not Choice Scarf, we are outspeeding it and we can Hurricane it, deal a lot of damage. So that's the new Salamence. Then, Rillaboom. Knockoff is now Woodhammer. Knockoff is still decent, but we're going for Woodhammer because we don't have the highest attack compared to other Rillabooms. Not that we need it. I could just make it stronger if I wanted to, but not that we need it. I've gone for the Woodhammer just because it gives us basically a nuke option on Rillaboom, and the main thing is we don't need the dark coverage anymore. We've got Crunch on Salamence, we've got Incineroar, which doesn't have a dark type move, but is still causing problems for things like Calyrex. Incineroar hasn't changed, Incineroar is exactly the same. Now the last slot, here we go. So this Thundurus basically fills the role of Salamence in the original version of the team, but it's better. It's just better. So this is where the Choice Scarf is now. If we look at its moves, now Weather Ball, that's what I was looking for in this slot. A Pokemon that got Weather Ball so that I didn't have to rely on Hydro Pump. We could knock out Entei and Landorus without worrying about missing. And this Thundurus does that. 100% base power, 100% accuracy, 100 base power, Weather Ball, gets those Pokemon, gets them out of there. Scarf Entei, gone. Landorus, gone as well. It also allows us to switch around with Volt Switch, which Salamence didn't allow us to do, unfortunately. Other Pokemon in that Salamence slot originally could have been, and I looked at them, Hydreigon and Dragapult, because they both get U-turn as well, but I thought the Intimidate's too good to pass up. But those are also Dragon-type Pokemon that get access to Hydro Pump, which is what we was originally looking at. But yeah, Hydro Pump's gone because I wanted that 100% consistent option. Volt Switch to switch out. Dark Pulse. So part of the reason that we got rid of the knockoff on Rillaboom is because we now have Dark Pulse. to help deal with Calyrex as well. And in the last slot, this one is up in the air. I ran Thunder because it's, well, why not? It's a really good option on Thunderous, especially since we're running Politoed as well. But the problem is we've got 4 move slot syndrome. We could run Sludge Bomb to help deal with grass types, but on this team, I don't think we need to worry about that. We've got 1, yeah, literally, we've got 1 grass weakness and 5 grass resists. So I'm not too worried about running Sludge Bomb. Electro Web, that was a really good option as well. The problem is that if we run Electro Web, our Thunderous doesn't really have big damage coming out in terms of its stab move, because Volt Switch is just not quite strong enough, especially with this spread, which we'll get onto as to why I've gone like this for now, and can it be changed? We'll talk about that. But yeah, Volt Switch is not knocking things out, unfortunately. At 252 max special attack, things like Suicune are still surviving Thunder as well, so it's not like we're missing out on any key KOs as far as I can think of by running this spread. Dark Pulse still knocks out Calyrex. Weather Ball still destroys the Pokemon I mentioned before. This gives us extra longevity. With our max HP, we live Calyrex Astral Barrage as well. Because what I was thinking was, I really don't like playing against those Mienshao Calyrex leads, but we have consistent options against that lead now. So against those, I lead Salamence and Thunderous. They can only fake out one of them, and if they fake out Salamence, we get off the Dark Pulse. If they're Life Orb Calyrex, then they just get knocked out before they move. If they are Focus Sash Calyrex, then we bring them down to their Sash, and then we get them on the next turn. If they fake out Thunderous, then Fake Out plus Life Orb Astral Barrage will knock out Thunderous, but we get the crunch off of Salamence, because Salamence will live the hit. We get the crunch off, we knock it out. If it's Focus Sash, with this spread on Thunderous, Thunderous will survive the Fake Out and the Astral Barrage. So Salamence will activate the Sash, and then Thunderous is still going to outspeed it on the following turn and get the damage off. Of course, it's not always as clear cut as that, because you get things like Feint on Mienshao as well. But I'm happy with that, because we've got Rillaboom, which is going to be grassy gliding as well. So yeah, it's no big deal. Let's quickly talk about Politoed again. So Helping Hand in this slot, I'm thinking about Icy Wind. Helping Hand was useful. It certainly was useful. But it could be Icy Wind for some speed control. Things I would like to change about this team as it is right now. I would like to get speed control on the team, because we have none. At the moment, the way we deal with Tailwind, opposing Tailwind and opposing Trick Room, is we outlast them. And the team does it quite well. Again, between double Intimidate, double Fake Out as well, having really good defensive synergy and being able to switch around, we can stall out those modes without much trouble. That said, I would like to have my own form of speed control, preferably I think Trick Room. All of the Tailwind users are just too frail, outside of Suicune, which I'm not going to put on the team because we've got Politoed now in our water slot, and I don't want to start doubling up on typings. Or Latias, but Latias is a bit too passive as well, and it would go in the Salamence slot, and I quite like the Salamence on this team. So maybe not Tailwind. Trick Room is the option I like the looks of. Probably Porygon 2. The problem is, at this point, all of these team members are filling a role, and they're filling a role quite well. So where would P2 fit in? I'm not sure. And the problem is as well, if we run Trick Room, the team's not really set up for Trick Room. Politoed can function in Trick Room, Incineroar can function in Trick Room, the Trick Room setter can function in Trick Room as well, but neither Politoed nor Incineroar are Trick Room Pokemon. So it's not ideal. I would like to run, Porygon 2, and maybe another Steel type to again benefit from the rain. I would like that. But again, I don't know where those fit on this team otherwise. For now, this is the team. I'm going to take it on to Battle Spot. You guys will see it in the next video for Crack the Meta. And we'll see how this team evolves. Feel free to use this team yourself. I encourage you, please do use it yourself. If you do, let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything you personally would change about it. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching, and yeah, well, let's see what happens. You take care.